5, 4, 3, 2.
Hi, and welcome to Exploring Hobbies. I'm Jamie Fouché, and today we are going to be talking about juggling. I have Patrick Cymbalski and Nick Rowling with me today. Hey guys, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Jamie.
Yeah, we're excited to talk with you. So tell us about juggling. How did you guys get started?
You first, man.
All right. I got started juggling actually by my dad, who can juggle just a little bit, just enough to kind of get my interest when I was 11. And he's like, practice, try it. And I kind of slowly worked on it for a little bit. I wasn't that good. And I picked it up again when I was 13, and I really worked on it. And I've just been juggling ever since. And I'm 20 now, so what is that?
Enough.
7. It's a while.
That's long enough.
So how about you, Patrick?
I got juggling on accident. I never thought about juggling. I never wanted to juggle. I always thought it was impressive, but it's just like playing concert piano. That's not for me because that's too hard. I will pass.
I'm with you on that, by the way.
I'm like, oh, wow, banjo? I want to play. Yeah, it's really hard. So I didn't bother learning. I was over a friend's house one day, and he was very haphazardly juggling pool balls, which was a mistake because they're not ours, and you could crack those very easily. Besides the point. Anyways, he's juggling pool balls, and I was like, that is so cool, and you're my friend, so you should tell me how to do that. And so he gave them to me. He said, try this, try that, try that. I could not get it. I went home. I was looking for any 3 matching balls we had. Couldn't find them. I had 3 hockey pucks. That didn't go so well. Anyways, just tried. And I would only juggle now when I was with this friend, with the pool table, and with pool balls. I didn't even think about tennis balls or anything like that. I ended up learning nice and slowly. It took probably a year or 2 because I never sat down and consistently tried. After that, I had it down, the basic pattern, and then I dropped it for at least 3 years. And I didn't think about it again. And then I ended up finding a guy at church that I went to at the time who used to juggle and used to go to this juggling club, and he had the flames and the clubs and the big things, and I thought that was the coolest. So when I went to youth group, he said, hey, you know what, we're not doing anything. Does anybody want to learn how to juggle? This guy raised my hand. I was excited, so he taught me how to juggle a little bit more. I ended up finding the club, but we'll get into that. So again, it was just an accident. I was just like, I don't want to do that. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And that's how it went. It was great.
So for those of us who don't have a pool ball juggling friend to teach us, how what's the process that you would normally do to learn it? So then you learn from someone who just kind of did it casually, and you learn from someone who really took the time to teach you. How is that different? How does one learn to juggle if you want to learn?
Awesome question.
Well, there's I like to call 3 simple steps. They're not necessarily easy, but they're very simple. So you start with one object, and that's the thing. You got to find 3 really similar sized objects. Tennis balls work great. They work even better if you put a little bit of a weight inside them. We'll cut them open a little bit and put some BBs in there and give it some weight. But you can use pretty much any, pool balls would work, but they're not optimal because they're heavy. You want to find something that isn't painful.
No.
Find something that won't hurt you if you drop it, because you're going to drop it. When we start, everybody drops when they start. So find one object, perhaps a ball like this, and then you just start tossing it back and forth kind of in an arc, so it peaks about your eye level. And then once you practice that a lot, and it's going to feel really stupid because I'm just tossing one back and forth, but you got to get your muscle memory going. So once you get that down, you take 2, and then you'll start passing the one juggling ball right before it hits your hand that also has the second one. You'll pass that one, and so you kind of get that motion down, the pass, and then right before it hits your hand, you're going to pass and then catch. You're going to get that motion down. That's the second step. And then the third step is just taking 2 in one hand and starting this sort of continuous cycle where right before each juggling ball hits your hand, you'll pass. And it just the steps are really simple, but it takes a while to get them down. And
it's all about commitment. Just picking up any objects and getting your hand-eye coordination down is key. If anybody picks up any object and is able to throw it up and catch it with their other hand, they're golden. Or even in the same hand, they can throw it up their right hand, not really look at it, but just kind of look in the general area and catch it again. That's key. So definitely to learn how to juggle, to get started, if you've never juggled before, you don't have a pool ball throwing friend, and you don't have objects that are 3 of the similar size, who cares? Get an orange or an apple or a lime or something that will not an egg. Anything that's not an egg.
Or something painful or heavy.
Yes,
I've broken
so-
things in my house, so don't get heavy.
No vases, none
I
of
was
that
going to
stuff.
say, I'm picturing you both driving your families crazy as you juggled any household object you could get your hands on.
Yeah. Trial and error.
I'm just glad I can juggle now, and as
Okay.
are my parents. But again, it's all about getting the hand-eye coordination down. That's key. If you can do that, then learning the steps, like Nick said, it's just pretty straightforward.
Got it. So what are some of the more common things that people would typically juggle?
Well, there's a lot of things that people typically juggle, but the most common thing you're going to see any concert or show performer juggle, or people with friends or anything, is going to be a club, and this is your typical club. This is what people usually juggle. Now, everyone's going to call this a pin because that's what it looks like.
It's kind of look like a
It doesn't. Yeah, it does look like a pin.
It's not
you're
a pin, though.
But it's not a pin because if you've ever picked up a bowling pin, you will never want to throw that up in your life. It is so heavy. So these are clubs, what we call them, and these are what people typically juggle. And again, it's in between two things. It's clubs and you've got balls of any kind. You've got these, which have sand in them. You've got ones with BBs in them that we
Tennis
use frequently.
balls,
Yeah.
You've
Sure.
got ones with millet. You've got anything that you can put inside some sort of cloth. This is like a play pit ball. These are
Bean
really,
bags, kind of a-
bean bags, anything like that. Beanie Babies, anything that's just softer. But I would say, yeah, in concerts and in performances, you would always see the club. That's just a typical staple in all colors, all shapes, all sizes. But they're very, very light. Not to be confused with the bowling pin.
I should mention about the clubs, actually. When you learn with a club, the difference is the club is actually rotating when you pass it.
Okay.
So it's slightly different from just kind of a straight toss when you learn with juggling with balls.
Yeah,
So
it
it's
is
a
a
little
little
bit of a learning curve difference. Same 3 steps. I mean, you'll start with 1 and work to 2. You'll probably be faster because you've already learned how to juggle
Yeah.
balls, presumably. But the flipping tends to mess people up. They'll sometimes, kind of hit their extremities or their
I'll
heads.
still hit my face.
I mean, when you're
Yes.
trying new stuff, it's always an experience. But yeah, learning-
Definitely. The balls, I would say, as far as learning goes, it's always balls first, club second, rings third, and then miscellaneous objects. For show purposes, it's usually just, again, the ball and the club. That's really all you're going to see
Maybe
of the
something
typical.
fancy like a knife or
something
a flaming thing.
fancy.
But they're basically just derivatives of clubs, just
Anything,
fancy
yeah,
variations on
a club on
clubs.
fire, a ball on fire, knives on fire, rings. Those don't light on fire as well. But you kind of understand from there.
Yeah, yeah. So what are some of the more unusual things that you have juggled?
Well, you can see an example on the table of the knives that I actually made myself from some hardware store machetes, which are not sharp, although they look sharp, and serve a very good purpose for the kind of stage show. They'll cut fruit, and people always get scared. My mom
do
still
the
doesn't
job.
like when I'm like, look, it's not sharp, and then she'll be like, don't do that. It looks. But yeah, knives. We have torches that are flaming, and they're cool because they whoosh. Because when you get the flame going with the air, it'll kind of that's sort of freaky sounding.
I've juggled some obscure things in my day. Basically, anything that you can pick up is juggleable, as we say. So I may have juggled a hot dog before. That did not work out so well. That's okay. Obviously, juggling eggs, also a mistake if you're not ready for that. But you can do that. Oh boy, what else have I juggled? Just some obscure things. I've just juggled, shoes, clothes, napkins, anything that you can get your hands on. And if you need to be in a situation where you need to juggle, anything will do.
Water
Give me
bottles.
Water bottles.
I've done water bottles.
Okay.
I'll do, and not chairs. Anything that's not too obscure to where it won't fit in a hand, but if it'll fit in a hand, it's over.
can juggle it.
Anything you can imagine in your head has been juggled. In fact, I just went to a juggling show recently.
Really?
And they had, and one of their little skits in the juggling show was, all right, if you're an audience member, bring any object you want, and you as the audience get to pick 3 of the objects, and this guy has to juggle them for 10 catches. And if he can do it, he wins, okay. If he doesn't do it, the whole audience got like a free poster or something. It was a lot of people in the audience.
Yeah.
And there were some very obscure things. We're talking lawn gnomes. We're talking like foot-long coney dogs with all the dressings on it. Oh yeah, and the list goes on from there. Pots and pans and this and that. And he did it, which was really impressive, but some really, really obscure things.
So does it take more skill than to juggle a set of different objects? Right? Because I'm picturing like the balls, for example. if you're using the same balls, they weigh the same, they're the same size, so pace-wise, that kind of thing. How is that different if you have just 3 random, completely different objects?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah, especially with things like that are, if you're combining things that are like clubs where you'll flip them like tennis rackets or something with something like a ball, it's really weird for your hands to kind of realize like, oh, every third catch I have this big flipping object instead of a small, like, so if you juggle like a golf ball, a tennis racket, and something else that's weird, it'll take a while to get used to it.
Different shapes are always way more confusing. If you have similar shapes, if you have a regular ball, if you have a bowling ball and a golf ball, they're all balls, they're all relatively similar, and you throw them with open palms, pretty much. If you're going to juggle all clubs, you're juggling them and you're grabbing them like this. Now, if you were to juggle 3 different shapes, if you were to take a ring where you juggle it like this, and then you have a club where you juggle it open palm like this, but you're still grabbing it, and then a ball where you're grabbing completely an open palm, those totally 3 different things can be way more difficult than juggling a toaster, a bread box, and some other square object. I mean, those are just all the same, and your hands are used to it, and you can anticipate the catch. But if you have 3 different size shapes, it's the variety that'll always get you. Okay. Always get you.
So besides the different things that you can juggle, are there different styles or types of juggling?
Absolutely. There are a lot of different styles of juggling. And in fact, when you go to a juggling club like we do, or if I go to a different juggling club or a juggling convention, you find that a lot of people focus on a lot of different styles, and not everyone will combine all these styles. Mm-hmm. Styles can include, but are not limited to, passing with a friend. When you pass with a friend, you do not pass anything except for a club-like object. You can pass a ball, you can pass a ring, but you will really not find that. So some styles, like with our club, the main thing that happens at our club is it's a social club and we just pass and we talk at the same time. We pass clubs. Okay. Now there are some people who are focused on what we like to call a numbers game. And juggling can be broken down to numbers. Now, I don't understand it. Some people do. I get a little bit of it. But there's just a way of notating throws, and every throw is a specific number or letter. And a lot of people, when they get really technical and they get into juggling 5 balls and 7 and 9 and 11 and so on and so forth, they will juggle in numbers and they will actually write out what they're going to do before they will throw it. So they say, I'm going to throw, and again, this makes no sense to you or me, 1, 5, 7, 3, 9. And I'm like,
it's like something to do with the height of where the
ball's going. It has to do with the height, it has to do with which ball in which hand. So some people are in it for the numbers and for just the sheer solo aspect of it. Mm-hmm. Me, I'm just going to juggle with balls or with clubs. I'm not going to pass with anybody, and I'm going to see if I can get this combination and do it, because only so-and-so people can do this or something. Okay. There's also another style which is completely for show. Mm-hmm. Now that could be a combination of the passing, that could be a combination of solo juggling, but that's all just fluff, if you will. That's all just juggling to make it look good. So that's going to be your knives. That's going to be your rings. That's going to be doing your weird objects and just learning how to do simple things but making it look really good with flair. So moving your arms around, or doing spins, or doing like a backflip in your routine, or balancing something on your chin. That's all for show. And while some of that's extremely difficult, that's a whole nother style of juggling. Can you think of any other ones?
I was just thinking you can break juggling down to a lot of different ways. Like he was saying, numbers, like how many can you do? Like he was also, I mean, just thinking that you can also break it down into like varieties. So like you can also do what's called bounce juggling. Like that's another variety. It's like the same idea, but you take like super balls or little, basically the same size. Yeah, something that's got a little bit of a bounce to it, and you'll just pass that way. And so instead of an arc going up, it's going to be bouncing off the ground. And so people work on that. Some people can do crazy things with that too. I can't. I've tried it. It's just a different sort of style, but you can break it down into styles, and you can break it down into what you're aiming for, and so there's a lot of different ways to just subdivide juggling.
Yeah. So you mentioned, sometimes you do things just for show. What are the kind of things that look, great for show, and is there certain things maybe that are really hard to master but aren't necessarily exciting to watch? How does that work? Because we're always impressed by fire, for example. If you put fire on it, we think it's cool. Yeah. Is the secret that really that's not so hard to do? Let us in on that.
It's not hard. It's not hard when you learn to juggle clubs, because all you're juggling with a fire club is a club. It just happens to be on fire.
Yeah.
And if you're proficient at juggling, and let's just say that this right here is the fire, if you're proficient at just catching it right here, which is how you juggle anyways, then you can juggle fire. This could be a spinning blade. This could be a chainsaw. That's not very hard. Yes, they're very heavy, and yes, it's on fire. And yes, there's other things. And yes, it's a blade, and yes, it's sharp. But it's really not that hard. It's all for show.
Yeah, I was just going to say that even though it's so impressive, and like you'll be doing it yourself and you're like, wow, I'm so impressive, and then you like break it down, you're like, this isn't really that different than what I would do normally.
Yeah.
Even though it's whooshing fire by me. Like I've caught torches on the wrong end, and it doesn't burn you, you just drop it, and it's just like any other drop. You're like, oh darn, now my grass is a little smoldered in that area. But it's not any really different than just like, oh, I dropped a club. It just looks really cool at people. So it's a weird sort of dynamic where you'll work on things, some tricks maybe that if you're a juggler, you'll know that it's really difficult, like some sort of like complicated hand movement that may or may not be very impressive visually, like a fire club or a knife, but you'll work on it for like months or even like years. Some people work on things to perfect it, and they'll be like, look at this, and people will go, uh-huh, so can you do 7? Or can you throw something with fire on it? And people,
Can you light it on fire?
That's the
You know?
question that people
Yeah.
are always like, oh, how many more can you do? What's the max number you can do? They never want to know, like, oh, you can do this trick, and then you'll just do them, and they're like, oh, that's kind of cool. How many more can you do? So there's sort of a disconnect between sometimes how difficult something is and how impressive it is.
So another juggler would know, though, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Someone who does it would understand that what you did
Right.
was really complicated
Yes.
versus a general audience who maybe doesn't do anything with it.
Yes.
Even
They
people-
want the fire and the sharp objects
Even
and that
people
kind
that
of
have
thing.
like tried juggling, like if they go, oh, that's so cool, I'm gonna go home and try it, and then they kind of realize, well, it's not as easy as they make it look.
It's like anything you do in life. You don't know until you try it how hard it is. I just tried to bake cupcakes the other day and make them into shapes, and boy, do I never want to do that again. But here you have these cupcake and cake shows where they're making these monstrosities that are beautiful and they're perfect,
Sure.
and they transport them. And I'm making a dozen cupcakes and I'm having a panic attack, and I can't handle it. It's
just-
the same
it
thing. You
is.
will never know unless you have gotten to a certain point where you recognize what that is. You just don't know. And I can't fault people for that, because honestly, I'm not about to sit and explain to you. It wouldn't make any sense. Like if them explaining to me how they're supposed to frost something. It doesn't make any sense to me. Until I try it and I sit there and I realize,
Do it.
okay, this is hard, I get it, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna know. And that's totally fine.
Got it.
There's 2 different audiences that you juggle for. There's the know-nothing performance-based audience, and there's like a competition juggler-based audience. And that's out there. It's extremely hard, and I would say out of 100 people, if you do some complicated maneuver, I would say 1 will get it. And that's just how it is. And it's something that every juggler knows. They're well aware, and they have to perform to their audience. If we're at club and we're trying something that's crazy hard and new, people will applaud because they get it. But if you're doing a gig here and we're doing a show with each other and we try something that's crazy, and no one's going to appreciate it, and we're not going to bother trying that. So a lot of the performance-based shows you see, those jugglers are usually, I don't want to say not that good, but they usually aren't ever focused on the numbers game. They're not focused on the complexity of juggling. They love performing, and that's what they do.
They're there to entertain.
They're there to
people,
entertain
basically.
people, and so if you see a juggler, you may think, wow, that juggler's phenomenal. They're
Yeah.
fantastic, they're doing fire. But in all reality, that juggler could be just as good as you or I or anyone else, but they're very good at showmanship. So it's just, it's a trade-off.
That makes sense. So if someone wants to break into juggling, is there special equipment that they should be prepared to kind of invest with to start with? Or any special costs that they need to be aware of?
Well, juggling can be free.
Yes, it can be free.
Apples, oranges.
Exactly,
tennis
whatever
balls
you
in
have
the
around your
house.
home, and that's how I would
Okay.
recommend starting, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to start a new hobby, it's going to cost me to get all the gear. You don't have to have all that gear, you can use whatever you have.
Yeah.
But once you do find out like you like juggling, it might be helpful to actually buy there's companies that make like specifically designed, specially weighted juggling balls and clubs, and I mean, I guess I could run off a list of names, but I mean, this basically, that are specially designed, and so then you might want to pick some up. But it's just like with anything, they'll be like the upper echelon, uber expensive, specially designed carbon fiber weighted whatever, and or you can get like the standard Walmart version of the club. So
everyone's got their own homemade stuff, and then once you get used to it, and once you realize that it is for you, fine, you're gonna spend some money on it. Now these things are they're not extremely expensive compared to other hobbies. If you're going to, first of all, if you want to make these, again, this is nothing. A lot of people like this style, and all it is you buy, 25 play pit balls that you would see in McDonald's. And you can buy them online, no big deal, and they're just a couple dollars. Cut a little hole, fill it with sand, and this is just electrical tape. And I use these every day. In fact, I prefer these over ones that I've bought and have costed some serious money. Just because I'm used to them, I like the shake, I just like the style of the thing. When you're getting into clubs, I would say is the one-time clubs and above with rings and knives, with the exception of knives, because you made that. But it's very hard to make a solid club that's weighted correctly. These are supposed to be weighted more on one side than the other. So I would leave this to the pros. But just to get into it, just to pick up the hobby and learn, all you need are 3 like-minded objects. Get 3 tennis balls, or get 3 of anything you can pick up. Stones. Or, again, anything you can find, anything that's relatively the same. It's just a free way to learn something new, which I love.
Got it. Where can people take lessons if they want to learn?
Lessons. Well, I don't.
Your own house.
I'm sure there's.
Take them at your own house.
Look them
up
online.
Or is that
There's
not the way to learn, right? Is there a different approach?
I'm sure there's
how do
probably
we learn?
somebody somewhere might offer juggling lessons. I've never heard of that. There's lots of tutorials online on like YouTube. You can search, how do I do? And then if you know what type of juggling move you're looking for, how do I do this juggling move? Or how do I learn to juggle? And they'll just run through those same like 3 steps that I told you. But you can go to a club, like a juggling club, and there's many local ones all over the place. And I would want to drop a shameless plug in here.
Let's talk a little bit about your club.
Motor City Juggling Club, which is Patrick and I are both a part of. And actually, Patrick is the president of Motor City Juggling Club.
That's what they call me. Yeah. But just really quick before we explain the club, I want to let everyone know, before we explain juggling clubs in general, I want to let people know to not be intimidated before you decide to go to a juggling club. I can't tell you how many people will not come to any club in general because they don't know how to do it. That's not the way you should think. It's like, I guess I understand if I was going to go to like Korean club. I don't know anything about Korea. I don't know how to speak anything, or I don't know anything about the country or the people or the culture. So I guess I would be shied away from that. But something like juggling club, and I imagine anything else, go because you will learn when you're there. It will be so easy. If you're open-minded and you're ready to just fail, you can succeed so fast. We have taught people in 2 minutes, in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes how to juggle, and that's a lifelong skill that they're going to have just because they came down. But don't shy away from any sort of thing. Just because it says something and you're not familiar with it doesn't mean you shouldn't go. I think that's even more the reason that people should go. And we have people like myself. I went to this club because I didn't know how to do higher level juggling. I had known a little bit. I went there and they were telling me I did it wrong for all my life. And I'm glad that I've gone there now. Otherwise I would never have learned. But anyways, I digress. So Motor City Juggling Club, I think it's important to know that people should go, because a lot of people, again, because you can just type in, how do I juggle? And you will find hundreds, if not thousands of videos on how you're supposed to juggle. Here's this person's perspective. Here's this one. Here's that one. Here's that one. You pick your favorite. You'll learn it. You watch the video 100 million times, and you're going to get it by yourself. That's fine. Or you can ask a friend. Honestly, people know how to juggle. But the club, Motor City Juggling Club, it's a club that meets once a week for hours on end. You can find us at mcjugglers.org. And it's just a great place to go, to hang out, to learn, to be social. And it's much more than just juggling. There are so many things that are attached to juggling that you can do. I don't want to call them circus activities.
But it's something that most people would think of circus activities. There's something there's like, they call them a Diablo, but it's like I don't know if you've ever seen 2 sticks with strings attached in this little spinny sort of hourglass.
They also call it a Chinese yo-yo.
So Chinese yo-yo. And there's like all sorts of like showmanship type things that you can work on. If you're not like, oh, I've done enough juggling, let's work on something else.
But there are some strange things that you can get into. I myself have learned how to do things I'm never going to need in life, but they're so much fun. Like someone comes in one day with a tennis racket and they've cut out all the strings, and it's try to fit through this tennis racket day. You know, exactly. And you're like, well, I'm here.
I can't do that.
let's
Might as
figure
well
that
try.
out.
Why not?
That's fun.
And there's a way to do it. And there's another person. Okay, today we're gonna learn how to we're gonna spin tops. There's like professional top spinners. You're like, what's weird? I've never learned how to do that before. Why don't I try? People bring in Rubik's Cubes and we'll learn how to do weird Rubik's Cubes all day. And we'll like try and figure this out, try and figure that out. There are just hundreds of different things that are kind of associated with juggling and just that weird niche market of odd toys that you can learn how to manipulate. And I don't know if you can think of anything else.
I was just going to mention, if you want to come down to Motor City Juggling Club, we meet every Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Okay.
And it's on Oakland University's campus, and it's in specifically Poly Hall. There's a large atrium that has a really tall ceiling that we'd recommend stopping by and checking us out if you're interested.
Okay, great. So we'd love to see a demo. Can you guys show us some of your stuff?
Absolutely.
For sure.
All right, thanks guys. It was really cool to see what you do.
You're welcome.
Thanks
for coming. So if people want more information, where would you recommend that they start? Where are some resources that they can go to for more info?
Well, first check out our website, Motor City Juggling Club, at mcjugglers.org.
Okay.
Get on our mailing list, and you can find out when we're doing meetings. And there's lots of news about like juggling conventions and shows and stuff. What else, Patrick?
So you can go to our website. If you want to just learn how to juggle in general, again, just go online, type in how to juggle, or type in any juggling club near you. If you were to type in nearby juggling club and you live anywhere in the world, you're going to find hits and you're going to find juggling clubs you can go to with people just like us that are more than willing to teach you. But again, our website, mcjugglers.org. We'd love to have you every Wednesday, 7 p.m. and onwards. That's at Poly Hall at Oakland University.
All right, great. It sounds like fun. Nick and Patrick, thank you so much for sharing about your hobby. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks for joining us, and please look out for future episodes of Exploring Hobbies.
So just passing some regular old everything. I'm throwing really awful ones.
You're fine.
Why am I nervous now that I know that they're rolling? I wasn't nervous before. I'm less nervous now. So nice. We don't need to do this for very long. They're probably not going to. I mean, right?
Yeah. Let's do. We'll see how an underlay goes.
Alright.
Then we'll be done.
Alright.
Oh, he fixed it! No!
Beautiful.
How about. Nah, it's on.
How about Everest?
Everest? Hold on.
My bad. I
What?
wasn't ready for Everest. Alright, let's try it again. Let's start Everest.
Everest, ready? 2 count, buddy. Collect on 3.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes!
Alright. The individuals, we can just juggle whatever we want. You do
Absolutely.
5 if you want. I'm gonna just sit here and do my
I'm gonna let
favorites.
you do. Oh, I'm right in the light. I can't do that.
Alright, let's go off some Mills mess if I can.
Have that, bud. Okay, I want this mess with you. Oh, it's been a while. Yours is way better than mine.
Chris helped me a lot with his.
Chris is great at those
He's
messes.
he's so good at these kind of type of things. The 3-ball kind of fancy pattern even
Yeah.
like the what's that? Someone's Revenge.
Oh,
Rubenstein's Revenge or something.
yeah, something like that.
I already forgot about the
Here's my
bounce.
life, ready? Ready this?
Oh yeah? How about the head up?
Oh, I can't do that with these. I'll try.
You did. Alright, you did. Okay, you try. Oh, Alright, hang on, wait. Fancy startup. Hang on, off the.
Fancy 3 startup.
Alright.
Jim Oakley
fancy
style.
Oh!
Oh,
Okay,
no.
wait, let's see if I can play that. I got this one.
Yeah. That's, come on.
Yours is under
There we
the arm.
go. Yeah, it's under the arm. I gave you the Jim Oakley under the legs.
Jim Oakley.
Yeah, dude.
That guy,
Classic.
he's classic.
Jim Oakley, rest in peace.
What else? Yes, amen.
Honestly.
Remember that. What else? do I have? Behind the back? Do that one.
Yeah. Circuit Jim Oakley.
Alright, I'm gonna pull off some fancy knives.
Ooh, I feel like I had 4, not 5.
Alright.
Are they sharp? Thank God.
Oh man, are they sharp. So sharp. Just fancy sharp. Alright, hang on, let's see if I can do the old toss one horizontal.
Whoa. Oh, your little thing there? It's so hard to tell, that's the problem. The best part about juggling like 5 is that you drop one and you just go to 4. And then you drop one and you just go to 3. Are you ready for this? 7, 5, 3, 1. 5, 3.
Individual
7, 5, 3, 1.
You get it?
Oh, that was bad. I'll do it right here. Oh, no. One try. It's not worth my time.
What else we got? Doubles?
Good luck with that.
I'm gonna
Let's
try
do
it
some
again.
flats, huh?
Oh, you go. Oh, alright, you pull off the flats.
No,
Oh!
let me do this. Is better flats. Wait, hold on. I gotta get back into like the club.
Oh man, that's just cool. With the lights. Careful.
What lights? What are you talking about? It's not bad. I got 3 apples. What are you talking about? Let's do 2 clubs.
Whatever we.
Ball.
How about, I'm gonna try 4.
And then you throw the ball up and you get to hit it.
All right, boys, that's a wrap.
Yay! Sweetness. Let's